Matt asked, are central banks involved in price manipulation? Mm-hmm. And try to make it as clear. I really want everybody to understand this.
Yeah, so there's no question but that central banks are involved in price manipulation. Central banks are involved in all sorts of price manipulation. Interest rates, as an example, currencies, Forex, the governments, they admit there's the government's group on markets, whatever it's called, that Reagan brought into the fold, where they'll come in and support the plunge protection team. They'll come in and support the markets as they're losing value. They'll come in at the end of the day and support it. All markets are supported. All central banks are involved. If we go back to Chris Marcus's interview with Bart Chilton, and anyone who's involved in precious metals, I believe, should have listened to this interview at least once. If you Google Bart Chilton, Chris Marcus, Bart Chilton was the head of the CFTC, which is the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. Bart Chilton told a story on Chris Marcus's podcast. He told it one time, and only one time to the public. He told a story of how Bear Stearns went bankrupt, and Jamie Dimon was called into the Treasury Secretary's office, Hank Paulson, and there was a conversation that basically went something like this: Jamie, we really need you to take over Bear Stearns, at this point, largest short position in silver, the history of the COMEX market. We need you to take it over. And Jamie Dimon says, well, listen, if JP Morgan takes over this short position, we'll be in violation of position limits. And they said, okay, fine, you have a certain amount of time to get your position limits in order, and then we'll be fine. Okay, fine. So that time expires. Bart Chilton, who is the head of the CFTC, which is like the SEC, but for commodities, he goes into his superiors and says, listen, not only, in fact, have they not lowered their short position, they've actually increased it, completely in violation of our agreement. They're breaking the law. They need to be prosecuted. And as Bart Chilton told Chris Marcus, he went into his superiors, told them this, and was told to back down, that it was a political decision. Bart Chilton died a week later, 10 days later, and maybe it's coincidental, maybe it's not. Some people think it's not. Some people say he died of cancer. All I can tell you is that's the only time he ever spoke out against JP Morgan in the system. And it's really a very interesting listen, because it supports anyone who's ever talked about precious metals manipulation. Heck, right now JP Morgan is involved. Their traders are involved in RICO charges, that the hearings are going on right now. And they're admitting that there was a long lineage of manipulation, and the traders came from Bear Stearns, taught the guys at JP Morgan how to do it. And the insinuation is that the superiors knew about it. But look, JP Morgan is very close to the government. And I would argue that JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs are probably the proxies, or probably the institutions that are doing the government's bidding for them, whether it be with interest rates or securities or commodities. So yeah, I do believe that central banks are involved in it, but I think they're losing the ability to do it. The whole Western system is losing the ability to manipulate the market, as we are seeing a coalescence in the BRICS nations. In fact, just today, I saw an article talking about Saudi Arabia now contemplating joining the BRICS. And if this happens, this is what I've been talking about now for over a year, where the dollar hegemony, the Western system is based upon the West's ability to price oil in dollars and the protection of the Saudi kingdom. We lose that ability, and the world starts to dump dollars and move away from our system, as you can see, is rapidly happening all across the globe, with all of these agreements that are being set up outside the dollar. The ability to manipulate markets, I think, will rapidly wane when the Western system is moved away from. And Zoltan Pozar, who used to work for the New York Federal Reserve, is a repo market expert, has recently come out and said, look, we're already in Bretton Woods 3, a system based on commodities, not upon debt instruments like the West is involved with. And if you look at comment by Vladimir Putin 2 weeks ago saying the BRICS nations are in the midst of developing a new world reserve currency. We've talked at length about, the Belt Road Initiative, the 80% of human population that's being connected, and all of these agreements between Russia and China and India. Now Iran is joining, Venezuela is joining, Saudi Arabia is talking about joining, Nigeria is selling their oil to China for yuan. All of these things are happening, moving away from the dollar, moving away from the Western system. And when the switch flips like that, when I believe it will be a situation where OPEC announces that they're going to take other currencies for oil, gold, which will probably be used as a settlement tool in world finance, other currencies, the new digital yuan or the ruble or whatever it may be. If they open it up to a slew of other currencies and gold, in a matter of hours, the markets in this country will open up, limit down. As look, every country on the planet has had to own dollars since 1974 in order to buy oil. And if that changes, which it really looks like it is, our whole system changes. Our ability to manipulate markets, our ability to paper our way through this malinvestment that we've seen over the last several years, courtesy of massive money creation and low interest rates, will end. And the biggest reason that they've stepped on gold and silver is the manipulation of interest rates, which makes everyone feel wealthy. But there's an inverse relationship in economics between real interest rates and the price of gold. It's called Gibson's paradox. So if you're going to suppress interest rates for all these years to make everyone feel wealthy, to make their home prices go up and your 401ks go up and your cryptocurrencies go up and everything go up in the face of a low interest rate environment, easy money, you have to suppress the canary in the mine shaft, and that's gold and silver. So it's probably the central banks who are behind it, using the commercial banks as their mechanism for which they do it. And in fact, even the exchange, the Chicago Board of Trade, and I forgot the actual, it's late Sunday night, I forgot the actual 3-letter acronym for it, but it says in their mandate that they do allow for central bank trading, that the central banks have accounts with them, the CME group, that they do have accounts with them. And they acknowledge the fact that, central banks are trading in commodities with them. So yeah, all of this stuff is real. And I think we are on the precipice of some very big changes. As you can see, if you really take a step back, you can see a good portion of the world is moving away from the dollar. And the further away they get and the more coalesced they get, the greater the likelihood that our ability to control markets rapidly deteriorates. So yeah, I think it's something that will end, but not until it does. And when it does, it'll something that happens quickly.
The next question you just answered, it was what will prevent price manipulation from continuing. It was all those reasons you just cited. All this stuff will come out in the wash. Lies and manipulation always does.